think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor. You're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection. Objection.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time,
Gentlelady,
Mr.
That's him.
Raskin.
Chilling at
Gentlelady,
the
will
game.
order.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in
Gentlelady will
prison.
suspend. The gentlelady should recognize the doctor as a doctor.
The sparks were flying in today's congressional hearing where Anthony Fauci, Mr. Fauci, as Marjorie Taylor Greene insists, was grilled to give an account of his previous testimony that he basically made up a number of COVID rules without any scientific backing. And that's just where the bombshells begin. All of this as a Florida county just designated the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum officially terrorist organizations. Gang, strap yourselves in. You are not going to want to miss this. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. And I know a lot of you, if not all of you, are sick and tired of the seedy corruption that we see pervading Washington, D.C. But you know the old saying, don't just get mad, get even. And that is exactly what you can do by clicking on that link below. You know that corrupt politicians like Nancy Pelosi have been getting insider trading secrets for decades now, enabling their returns to beat the market every single year. But thanks to a little-known SEC database, well, guess what? We can have access to the very same trading secrets that these politicians are privy to. We get to see what stocks corporate CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to piggyback in their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves that Pelosi and the crooks in D.C. have. My friend Ross Givens has been tracked
the ceremonial
to gain an insider advantage for yourself today.
To throw out the ceremonial first pitch. Catching his pitch is Nationals pitcher Sean Doolittle. Dr. Fauci, when you're ready, it's your pitch.
Look at that baseball voice. When you're ready. What was that?
He is not a pitcher,
that
obviously.
Pitch, that
Listen.
pathetic pitch, in many ways symbolizes the twisted career and public perception of Anthony Fauci. It's now being widely reported that Fauci has admitted under oath that much of what was marketed as science was actually nothing more than arbitrary dictates made up by Fauci himself.
That's crazy.
In recent bombshell congressional testimony, Fauci revealed that he made up the 6-foot social distancing requirements. He was unable to cite any study that corroborated the distancing requirements when testifying under oath. And he admitted that he could not recall any study that confirmed that masking was effective in preventing the spread of the virus. Now, keep in mind, masking was actually legally mandated in a number of areas around the nation, as well as the entire airline industry. Fauci also admitted that he was relatively unaware of studies on the impact of the virus on children, which, of course, we now know was radically negligible. And he also admitted that the lab leak theory, in terms of the origin of the virus, well, it was fully plausible after all, even though he originally did everything he could to shut that theory down.
So it did leak.
Now, as you saw earlier in that exchange with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Fauci today is appearing before congressional testimony, give an account of these bombshell admissions. Here's Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup, chairman of the subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, speaking before Fauci at today's hearings.
While policy decisions should have been based on scientific data, some frankly were not. The burdensome 6-foot social distancing rule did not have sufficient scientific report. In your words, it just sort of appeared. Distancing made sense, but the 6 feet was arbitrary. Even Dr. Collins said he still hasn't seen any empirical evidence to support the 6-foot rule. A rule that shut down schools and businesses, a rule that will have negative ramifications for decades.
What you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at the whole thing.
Yeah. Now look how it's all coming back.
Yeah, but this man didn't create this tomfoolery by himself. Come on, he ain't got that much power.
No, they're aware of that, but he
So
might.
he was the front man. What
Yeah.
we don't know what they were telling him behind the scenes.
True.
So maybe he made up some extra stuff just to throw in there, but he was already screwed. Whoever was truly behind all of this tomfoolery, he was getting his instructions from. He had a whole family, and I'm not condoning what he did. Let's be very clear before we get some nuts in the comment section. Let's be very clear. I'm not condoning what he did but what he did by no means. Because I was the person that was like, 6 feet. For real.
My baby was the one that had
Whole Foods, grocery store.
4 masks on.
I was serious with it.
That was the worst
And I'm
time
like,
ever.
but now listening to this, it doesn't surprise me. And I can't even be mad at the man because he was a step of way down on the totem pole doing his job. Sad but true. If he had have told what was really going on, where would we even know him? I mean, would he be alive? What his family? I mean, come on.
No telling.
As the pandemic wore on, more mandates also just sort of appeared. But the American public didn't get to see the scientific data to support these mandates. Americans were aggressively bullied, shamed, and silenced for merely questioning or debating issues such as social distancing, masks, vaccines, or the origins of COVID. Many Americans were willing to comply with the 15 days to slow the spread and understood the necessity of banning travel from certain countries in an attempt to slow down the virus. But many Americans became very frustrated when components of those 15 days stretched into years. And it should not have been the case that Americans were forced to comply with oppressive mandates when those who chose to illegally cross our southern border were not.
That's crazy.
And that's the kill shot right there, the coup de grace, as they say. That, along with the way the mass George Floyd protests were blessed and encouraged
All
by the
set
very
up.
same elites who just weeks before denounced the protests against COVID restrictions as super spreader events. It all demonstrated for all to see the politically motivated double standards that define so much of the insane selective tyranny that dominated the COVID era. Robbie Starbuck had a great tweet reminding all of us of what this meant. People were banned from holding their loved ones as they died, banned from visiting sick family, banned from stores if they refused a mask, arrested for taking their kids outside, and both people and businesses died because of this tyrant. Justice starts with Fauci in a jail cell. I know someone personally who died. I believe she had a heart condition, but she died because hospital staff refused to treat her because she was unvaccinated.
They were
What
going
Robbie's
crazy with
saying
that
there isn't even
unvaccinated stuff.
remotely an exaggeration. Michael Cipher, CEO of Public Square, good friend of this channel, he pointed out, quote, people got censored, canceled, and fired for
That was
critiquing
true.
these made-up
Fake
rules.
rules.
Now, this is quite the fall for Fauci. After all, it wasn't long ago that he was literally venerated, not as a scientist, but as a saint. You remember this?
No reporters asked about these emails at today's White House press briefing. Not one question. But you shouldn't be surprised. Of course they didn't ask. Tony Fauci is too big to question at this point. Quote, oh my God, one Biden voter wrote to Tony Fauci back in March. Is there anything I can do for you besides being grateful? Wash my feet with your tears, Fauci may have responded. We can't say that he did respond that way for certain. We don't have his reply. We do know that in affluent neighborhoods throughout Northwest Washington, D.C., you can still see signs that say, thank you, Dr. Fauci. What does that tell you? It tells you that Tony Fauci is no longer a scientist, assuming he ever was one. Tony Fauci is a figure of religious veneration. He is Jesus for people who don't believe in God.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, in many respects, what we've gone through. Because it's only further fed the epidemic of delegitimation that's literally eroding our nation's institutions. We talked about this on our live stream Friday broadcast in relation to our court system, which of course is going now through a radical crisis of legitimation, especially after that venomous verdict handed down by the Manhattan court against Trump. Gallup did a recent study, found that Americans' trust and confidence in every single major public institution in our nation has reached very dangerous lows. I mean, we're talking crisis levels of distrust all across the board. We've lost trust in our government, in our legal system, in big business, in big tech, in the legacy media, the criminal justice system, and yes, most especially our medical system. People see how radically partisanized and politicized this all is, and where citizens had to comply with all these protocols and restrictions, all at the same time illegal migrants didn't. That's just one example of that duplicity.
So here, pause real quick.
And if we didn't comply, our lives were destroyed.
Okay, so what actually happened behind the scenes that was pulled off during that time? Because that's really the big picture. After watching all this stuff, how they're treating Trump and all the foolery that they're doing to Trump, trying to make up a crime as they have the trial. I mean, we're not going to go there. So this is what makes me feel like he's just a fall guy. I mean, I don't feel a way about it. I'm not angry or anything, because just by seeing what is happening to Trump, what do you actually think Fauci really had some pull in this situation? He was the man in the CDC, so they had to get somebody to put it out there that had some authority, supposedly, in science and medicine. So these other agencies would believe it. So you're not gonna sit there and make me think that, oh, it's all on him and it's his fault and he just did all this tomfoolery. I just don't believe that. Was he over there in the lab in China?
Yeah.
Okay. Prior to that.
I don't know. I just know that
prior to when it all started going down.
Even though he's a fall guy, he's the one that we see, and he's the one that lied, and he's the one that caused a lot of issues. Whether he's the fall guy or not, he's the face. So you're going to have to deal with the problems.
Exactly.
And you said this coming out your mouth, so you are held accountable. They can't hold the parties that they don't see. Right.
Just like the DOJ and all these other agencies that we have deemed to be corrupt.
So in light of this crisis of legitimacy that our public institutions are currently going through, it's not a surprise that Lee County Republican Assembly in Florida, which is a grassroots conservative organization, Lee County, Florida, they passed a resolution declaring the UN, the WHO, and the WEF of all as terrorist organizations. I kid you not, the resolution passed by the Lee County Republican Assembly calls on the Florida legislature and Governor Ron DeSantis to pass and sign legislation declaring cooperation with the UN, with the World Health Organization, with the World Economic Forum, get this, an act of treason against the United States and the state of Florida.
Wow.
Now, unfortunately, the resolution is bottled up in the state legislature. But the very fact that such a resolution would get passed in the first place testifies to the total loss in confidence that so many have towards our public institutions today. In this case, international public institutions. And, of course, we've been reporting on how the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty has basically imploded all over the world. In the words of Deborah Hine, writing for American Greatness, the treaty has, quote, crashed and burned. The treaty that sought to impose pandemic standards on all member nations that would have stripped us of our national sovereignty in dealing with a worldwide pandemic, that treaty is now officially no more. And again, it's all the result of this process of delegitimation that Fauci and his Democrat cronies have unleashed on our nation's institutions.
Cronies.
And the irony in all of this is that the more Fauci and his cronies try to use the instruments of government to tyrannize, the more they undermine the legitimacy of those instruments and thereby weaken the very institutional mechanisms of that tyranny. The good news is that regardless of what happens, it really does look like the days of reckoning have come for Mr. Fauci in terms of his own legitimacy. He's clearly fallen from his secular sainthood. Let's hope that the forces that he was able to rely on for that time of pandemic tyranny themselves stand to fall as well. Here's your opportunity to tell big tech tyrant.
I mean, it was going to happen.
It was.
It was going to happen.
And he was aware. He knew it
I'm
was going to
sure.
happen, and it was probably made aware and made attention
Just
to
a
him
matter
2
of
years ago
time.
that they're like, well,
It
you know,
was a matter
we're just
of
letting you know
time.
that after this time passes, they're going to call you out, and it's going to go. You're going to be scrutinized. So we're just letting you know that it's not going to go in your favor after everything go off. So they said the man made 700 million
How?
in relief. They said I saw it said $700 million. How much?
Wow. Well, I just can see it, and I just can't see it in how somebody would say, you know what? Come on, let's create this big, scheme so we could get rich. Wow, we put the whole world in an uproar because it was a world thing. It wasn't just the U.S. Other countries were affected by this.
Keep going. I'm gonna see.
I mean, I feel you. I just don't feel like he was the mastermind behind the whole plan. He had to agree to go along and do it, but I just don't feel like he was the mastermind. So I'm not, that's why I haven't even been following. I'm like, child, please. I mean, it doesn't cease to amaze me now. The way Trump is being drugged and all this tomfoolery and how it's opposite. It's like
government.
Exactly. It's like, please. I mean, so you actually want me to actually believe that he's the genius behind this whole plot? I don't. He just had to get on the bus and play his role. Whatever his role was, that's what he did. If he had to refuse to do it, maybe he didn't want to refuse to do it. Maybe he wanted to come up on some cash too. I don't know. But what if he had to refuse to do it?
Right. Then his
So what? I mean, that's my question. What if he said, you know what, I'm not doing that. That's horrible against the American people. And what if he had said he wasn't doing it?
people, man, that thing was whole thing about power control and people getting rich.
But what happened during the time that everybody was in COVID? Something else was going on, and I didn't even realize. So could it have been the immigrant situation, the open border type of vibe?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even realize they didn't have to wear them.
No mask, just busting through, living life.
Wow.
But then over here, go on, put your mask on.
But when we was going to Mexico, they had the mask was on lock. They
Listen.
had signs and everything.
Yeah, but not the people coming across the border trying to get into the
Oh,
U.S.
illegally, you mean?
Imagine we get on the airplane. As soon as you get your meal, they coming down the aisle, doing this. You remember that?
Oh,
Mask
Delta
up.
was not
Mask
playing.
Up. Mask up.
Delta was not. They were putting people pulling you off the plane if you weren't complying with them rules. That's crazy.
And what was so bad, man? People were turning.
shame.
We were turning on each other. People were turning on each other.
They
You be like,
were.
man, you be like, nigga, put your
Fighting.
mask on over there on the plane.
You know, but it even
you
got out
done
of
eat.
hand.
You done eating your brisket.
Old people, you were worried about your seniors. I know I was worried about my mama.
Oh my God.
This is just wow. I don't know what to say.
I don't either. Well, it's been
I
exposed
feel
now.
for him.
The truth is out.
I really do. Like he said, Dr. Steve Turley, he said it's a sad situation, and it truly is. Ain't no winners in this thing.
It's not.
It really isn't. I mean, I feel for him. As old as he is, he got to deal with all this stress because he ain't Trump, baby.
No.
Trump is fortified, strong, eating his Wheaties and spinach every day. This man is a little bit stronger than Joe, but he looks like it's weighing on him.
It's weighing on him. All right. 2024 be more.
Talk less.
We'll see you on the next one.
Give us some feedback.